Hey, baseball parents, stop doing this. Now, disclaimer, I myself am not a baseball parent. However, I have seen many parents discourage their kids from even wanting to play the game just by doing these 3 things. So listen up, from my experience playing in both professional ball and college ball, these are some common mistakes that I've seen at every single level of the game that serve more as an obstacle to a kid's career opposed to helping them. Number 1, this is probably the most common: do not correct your kid's mechanics during competition. Now, this is a tempting one because I know you see your son over there and his elbow's not up. That's why he's not hitting the ball, right? And maybe you do know the answers. However, if it's mid at bat, it's so much better to allow your son or daughter to compete. Not only is this better for them mentally and not putting additional pressure on them, but it's also better for them physically. They will likely have better results with actually less instruction. Now, I was speaking to 1984 Rookie of the Year, Alvin Davis, about this very thing. And I'll never forget, he specifically said, hey, once the ball's moving and we're hitting, it is too late to make mechanical adjustments. Once it's game time, you just roll with what you got. Those mechanical adjustments serve as more of a hindrance than a help when we get into competition. So if you see something that your kid's doing wrong, write it down and maybe save it for either after they're at bat or maybe even after the game. It will probably be received a lot better that way, and it will be much more useful than you shouting it out during competition. Okay, the second mistake that I've seen is saying too much. Baseball is extremely hard. There is no need to narrate all of your kid's mistakes. In other words, your kid just threw the ball away. There's no need to say, hey, stop throwing the ball away. They probably know that they need to make a better throw. Beyond that, it's also okay to just not have all the answers. Maybe your son or daughter is struggling with something at the plate and they ask you a question that you don't know the answer to. That's totally okay to not know the answer. I've played the game at its highest levels and there's plenty of times where I don't really know the answer either. So when you get presented with a question that you don't have the answer to, say, that's a good question. Let me go look it up and I'll get back to you. Maybe even do the research with your son or daughter. It's better to say, I don't know, than to always think that you have the answers and get frustrated when they don't have the results. Little side note on this one, just because something worked for you in your playing career, maybe you played pro ball, maybe you played college ball, maybe something worked for you in your career, but that's not a guarantee that it's going to work in your son or daughter's career. Baseball is so individual, so just keep that in mind. Number 3, don't punish poor performance. So many kids these days playing baseball are getting performance anxiety. They're scared to fail. Why are they scared to fail? Well, there could be a lot of factors, but part of it might be that you're putting unnecessary pressure on your kid. They don't want to let you down on the field, and if they feel that additional pressure, it might actually hurt their performance. Realize that if your kid's not playing well, it's rarely because they don't want to play well. At least in my playing career, I always wanted to play good. So there's no use in punishing poor performance. It's not going to make them be somehow a better player. Focus on giving helpful instruction instead of punishing poor performance. Now, if there's a bad attitude or something like that, yeah, absolutely, enforce rules. Set a standard and hold them to it. Discipline and accountability is super important. However, do not hold kids accountable for their poor performance. They can't control it and they likely want to succeed just as much as you want them to succeed. Even if you think that their poor performance is just because they're not listening to you well enough, then take responsibility for that. Take ownership for that. Rather than blaming their listening skills, see if you can reframe what you're trying to communicate in a way that is new, unique, and can help them from a different angle. It was most helpful for me in my career to just have parents who were always supportive of the good things that I did and didn't really mention the poor things. My parents were always supportive and positive, and I never once on the field thought, oh, I hope I don't strike out, my dad's gonna be upset at me. So just take that with a grain of salt and don't punish bad performance. Sometimes as a coach, less is more. And if you're a baseball or softball parent, you don't have to have a ton of knowledge in order to be a great coach. So be humble, be their biggest supporter, and be the coach that you would want to have for yourself. I'm Coach Rag. Let's grow.